You could buy all the oil of Saudi Arabia free of charge. All you have to do is to get paper and pen and write checks. Where did this paper come from as money? When paper money first came into being, when the Bank of England was established, 17th century, it came into being in the form of a check, or at that time it was called a promissory note, check. So I write a check, you can go and cash it. Provided that you can cash the check, no problem with the check. But if I'm writing checks and I don't have money in my account, I went to the showroom, saw a BMW, motor car, wrote a check, took the BMW, I drove out. When I went to cash the check, no money in the account. That's called fraud. You go to jail for that. So at the beginning, paper money were like checks. The problem was that the bank that was issuing the paper would sometimes issue more checks than they had cash. Cheating. And hoping and pray that everybody would not come to cash the check at the same time. What Britain did was what the banking system is now doing. The bank has so much money, that's all, but the bank lends 10 times more. It's called fractional reserve banking. It is unjust. It is a system of legalized theft. But they established the Bank of England to become the big thief of all. And so the sterling pound is riding high. Britain can lend, Britain can become the money lender of the world. Because Britain has so much gold, but Britain is lending so much paper. And all that you have to do is get off what is known as the gold standard, and then you can print the paper. So that's how it started. With paper, which is no longer redeemable in gold, and the bank issuing more paper than you have gold. The sterling pound used to be a gold coin. And then one Sunday morning, perhaps while they were in church, it became paper. And so you have a monetary system now emerging in the world in which the British pound is the supreme currency, the international currency. And Britain becomes the money lender of the world. And Britain is becoming richer and richer. Whoever owns a bank is very rich. Why? Because you can make money out of thin air. And they call it fractional reserve banking. But the real story that we have to tell, and somebody should teach this story to the scholars of Islam, the ulama, the real story doesn't begin with the Bank of England. The real story begins after the Second World War was coming to an end. So what they did was, the Zionist Jews and the Zionist Christians, when they won the First and Second World Wars, they decided they wanted to create a new monetary system of money that they will control. And paper money came into being as universal money. And they made a law that it is illegal to use gold as money. Well, Allah made it halal, but they made it haram, which is shirk. The system was called the Bretton Woods system. When they came together in an international conference in a place called Bretton Woods in upstate New York. And Britain went to the conference as, you know, His Imperial Majesty, hoping that they'll be able to salvage something for the sterling pound. But the time had come for Pax Britannica to go. And the time had come for Pax Americana to replace Pax Britannica. And they agreed that they will take one paper money, only one, and you could cash it for gold. It's called redeeming in gold. And because they wanted the United States to become the new ruling state in the world, replacing Britain, they chose the US dollar. So at Bretton Woods in 1944, the United States formally replaced Britain. When the US dollar was chosen, that only this paper could be cashed. And the rate was 35 US dollars. When you cash it, you get 1 ounce of gold. Before this, the US dollar was redeemable at $20 an ounce of gold. $20 an ounce of gold. And then the US government, with the aid of the Federal Reserve Bank, which had just been established, did a rip-off of the American people. I have to tell you the story. They announced that it is now illegal to use gold as money in the United States. It is illegal to keep gold in your home. You could keep jewelry, but not gold as money. The law requires that every American resident must sell your gold to the government at the rate of 20 US dollars for 1 ounce of gold. And you can trust the US dollar because it prints there, "In God we trust." If you are caught with gold coins after a certain date, you will be charged 10,000 US dollars and face 6 months in jail. That's called wickedness. So the American people had to sell all their gold to the government at the rate of $20 an ounce of gold, like a nation of jackasses. Or those who are not jackasses, they put their money in boxes and ship them out of the United States to Switzerland. Yes. Then after the United States had bought all the gold in the United States, the government, they did the unthinkable. They changed the price of gold. They say now the US dollar is no longer $20 to 1 ounce of gold, it is now 35. And you better buy back your gold before we change it again. This is 1933. And the American people had to rush to buy back their gold at $35 an ounce, and in the process, Uncle Sam ended up with 40-something% of all the gold in the United States, free of charge. You know, if you buy a gun, before you actually use the gun in battle, you'll want to test it. To go on a shooting range and you trial run. What happened in 1933 was trial run by the Federal Reserve to see if the system will work. That by changing the value of the paper, bring it down lower from what it was is sometimes called devaluation. Devaluation. When the value of the paper fell from 20 to 35, there was a massive transfer of wealth from the American people to the government. 40-something% of the gold was transferred. This was done at a national scale to test the system before it starts operating internationally, before it starts operating around the world. It's like a vacuum that you use to clean the carpet, a vacuum, a suction pump. As the value of the paper money falls, like a suction pump, the Algerian dinar is now at about 105 or 106 dinars to $1. The Bangladeshi taka is somewhere around the same. The Pakistani rupee is somewhere around the same value. The Indonesian rupiah is about 10,000 to $1. And as a consequence, during this period of time, from 1944 until today, the suction pump has been at work, sucking the wealth of our people, making our people poorer and poorer while they become richer and richer. So they started off the monetary system by giving to the United States dollar an unfair advantage. It is the king currency. It is the only money which is redeemable in gold at $35 an ounce of gold. And all the rest of the paper money in the world is linked to the US dollar. You have no legs on which to stand. None. This is what they brought into the world at Bretton Woods in 1944. A monetary system through which they effected the passage from the sterling pound as the international currency to the US dollar to replace it. That is Bretton Woods. But that was only a fig leaf. The rest of the world of paper money was only paper. You could convert it to US dollars. So when you ask, what is the value of the Malaysian ringgit? No one will say, well, the Malaysian ringgit is worth so many Pakistani rupees. Huh? Or the Malaysian ringgit is worth so many Bangladeshi taka. No! Malaysian ringgit is worth so many US dollars. Huh? Because all the rest of the paper money in the world must now make sajda before the US dollar. Good. The problem was that the law permitted you, if you were a central bank, not Imran Hossein, if you were a central bank, the law permitted you to take the US dollars and ask the American government to give me the gold. The law permitted it. No central bank will be so stupid. No central bank will be so stupid to ever come with US dollars to ask for gold. They're all scared. So the system is designed to allow the United States dominance in the world of money. So all of these paper money which have no redeemability in gold are all bogus and fraudulent and haram, all. And only one leader in the world, his name was General Charles de Gaulle. he was not at all happy with an unjust monetary system which gave an unfair advantage to the United States over France. Charles de Gaulle was not so much concerned about the fact that you could take paper and make money. What he was concerned about was this was advantageous to the United States and disadvantageous to France. So he decided to sabotage the system. So he kept on giving the United States dollars and demanding the gold. Nobody else dared to do that. Nobody else dared to do that. Because you know, the United States has a big stick. But Charles de Gaulle kept on doing it until they removed him from power, the Zionists. He stood up in the French National Assembly and gave a powerful address condemning this monetary system. No Muslim leader ever did that. But we have to pause to give tribute to one man. The world has forgotten him, but Imran Hossein has not forgotten him. Finally, in September 1971, after Charles de Gaulle had been removed, the French government again went to the United States with US dollars and demanded the gold. But now the United States realized that the game was up. They had printed too much paper and they didn't have the gold. Normally you should send the United States to jail. But who can do that? Huh? So what Richard Nixon did was to, Sunday morning, announce to the world, we gave our word, but we don't have to keep our word. That's America. We gave our word that we would redeem US dollars for gold. But we don't have to keep our word. We're not going to do it anymore. So now, no currency, no paper in the world, none, can be cashed. You just write checks and that will be your money. Who could write the most checks without the most money? Huh? So get a checkbook and start writing checks. The problem is, if you have an American checkbook or a French checkbook or a German checkbook or an Australian checkbook or a Singaporean checkbook, you could write checks. They call it hard currency. But if you have a Bangladeshi checkbook or a Pakistani checkbook, you can write as many checks as you want. You cannot even buy a cup of coffee in Manhattan. See? So now you have a bogus monetary system which gives to the enemies of Islam the capacity to make as much money as they want by simply writing checks and let the donkeys in the world accept the checks. You don't have to work anymore to get money. No! In a world filled with donkeys, all you have to do is write checks. You could buy all the oil of Saudi Arabia free of charge. All you have to do is to get paper and pen and write checks. But this is a risk you're taking, because it's a house of cards, it could collapse. Once you had the gold, you had some security. But now the gold is no longer there. So from 1971 to 1973, they're searching for something to keep the house of cards strong. What they did was to engineer the war of 1973. And they were on both sides of the war. They were on the Israeli side and they were on the side with Anwar Sadat. And the Soviet Union was a Zionist client state. But the Arabs didn't know that. So they caused this war to go to a draw. And then Kissinger, they knew that if the war took place, they knew that King Faisal, rahimahullah, was going to impose an oil boycott on the United States. They knew it, because Faisal had said, I will do it. And they knew that if an oil boycott of the United States were to take place, the price of oil would rise. In fact, it rose by 400%, from $3 a barrel to 12. And suddenly the Arab oil producing countries were getting money flowing in. And they were happy with that, from $3 to 12. Kissinger waited until it reached 12. And then Kissinger flew to Saudi Arabia and succeeded in making the greatest deal that has ever been made in history. And because of that deal, an ocean of oil began to function as a mountain of gold. What did he do? He got Faisal to agree that Saudi Arabia would sell its oil for only US dollars. I hope and pray that I'm not speaking unjustly of King Faisal rahimahullah. If I am, may Allah forgive me. But this is secret negotiations, and I don't have the records, so I'm reading between the lines that Kissinger was successful in convincing Faisal rahimahullah. And when he convinced Faisal, Faisal realized that there's a lot of money to be made now. This is the deal. We want you to make a law that you will sell your oil for only US dollars. And Faisal fell for it. May Allah forgive him. You cannot buy oil from Saudi Arabia with any money, even with gold dinars. You cannot. Saudi Arabia will not sell, except for US dollars. And then Saudi Arabia got the other Arab oil producing countries to fall in line. And then came OPEC. And OPEC was the organization which kept the ocean of oil functioning as a mountain of gold, OPEC. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries was then successful in establishing a rule for all member states of OPEC that we all agree that we will sell oil for only US dollars, and that was the birth of something called the petrodollar. And that is what they wanted at Bretton Woods, but Imran didn't understand it. No. That was the ultimate prize that they wanted. When they started in 1944 in Bretton Woods, but I did not understand it.